Hello and welcome. We are live from New Delhi. You're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. President Droupadi Murmu to address the joint sitting of Indian Parliament, expected to unveil the priorities of the newly elected government led by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Bolivia coup attempt fails after military assault on presidential palace. President urges people to mobilize against democracy threat. Rebel army general arrested. Ahead of UK elections, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and opponent Starmer debate over Partygate, borders, tax and gender, while in the US, Biden and Trump are all set for the first presidential debate on Friday. And in T20 World Cup, Afghanistan in tatters in the first semi-final against South Africa, while unbeaten India to take on reigning champions England in the second half today. News in detail now. India's President Droupadi Murmu will address the joint sitting of Parliament, where she is expected to unveil the priorities of the newly elected government led by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. President's address to the joint sitting of Parliament will also be the first after the constitution of 18th Lok Sabha. The first session of 18th Lok Sabha began on Monday, and the 264th session of the Rajya Sabha will begin on June 27th. According to Article 87 of the Constitution, the President is required to address a joint session of Parliament at the beginning of the session after each Lok Sabha election. The President also addresses a joint sitting of both houses in the first session of the Parliament every year. Following the President's address, the ruling party will move a motion of thanks in both houses of the Parliament, which will be debated by the members. And the Indian Parliament passed 3 new criminal laws: the Bharatiya Nyay Sanhita, the Bharatiya Nagrik Suraksha Sanhita and Bharatiya Sakshya Adhiniyam to replace the Indian Penal Code 1860, the Criminal Procedure Code 1973 and the Indian Evidence Act 1872. These are soon to be implemented. There are some myths related to these. DD India busts them for you.
The newly enacted laws Bharatiya Nyay Sanhita, Bharatiya Nagrik Suraksha Sanhita and Bharatiya Sakshya Act, which will completely overhaul the criminal justice system in the country, will come into effect from July 1st this year. The 3 laws got the Parliament's approval on December 21st last year, and President Droupadi Murmu gave her assent on December 25th. The laws will replace the colonial-era Indian Penal Code, the Code of Criminal Procedure and the Indian Evidence Act of 1872. The 3 legislations aim at completely overhauling the criminal justice system in the country by giving definitions of various offences and their punishments. However, the provision related to cases of hit and run by vehicle drivers will not be implemented immediately. There are several myths related to these 3 laws. Another myth is that the criminal laws are mere repackaging of existing provisions. However, the truth is that the new laws enshrine the concept of justice embedded in our constitution to improve the criminal justice system of the country. While the old laws were British legacies, the new laws are citizen-centric, victim-centric, and sensitive to the offences against women and children. The colonial legacy related to the sedition section in the IPC has been removed in the Bharatiya Nyay Sanhita 2023. This is a positive step addressing concerns of misuse against dissenters and critics of the government. The new laws incorporate gender-neutral language, promoting inclusivity and equality in the legal framework. Shifting from imprisonment to community service for criminal defamation aligns with modern approaches to justice, emphasizing rehabilitation and societal contribution over punitive measures.
A significant milestone for the International Solar Alliance, as the Republic of Paraguay officially became its 100th full member. Launched on 30th November 2015 by Prime Minister Narendra Modi and President of France Emmanuel Macron during COP21 in Paris, the ISA aims to accelerate the deployment of solar energy globally in support of climate action. Headquartered in India, the ISA has now brought together several countries to collectively address barriers related to technology, finance and capacity in scaling up solar energy. India is playing a crucial role in shaping the sustainable energy future by providing renewable energy solutions to the world, especially the global south. The ISA serves as a vital platform for international collaboration, uniting nations in their efforts to combat climate change and facilitate transition towards use of solar energy on a global scale. And India on Wednesday asked Italy to take prompt action against those responsible for the death of a 31-year-old Indian worker who died after he was dumped on the road without medical assistance by his employer after his arm was severed by heavy farm machinery. The Indian Embassy in Italy, in a post on X, called for prompt action against those responsible. Embassy is in contact with the family of Satnam Singh for consular help and transportation of mortal remains. And Muktesh Pardeshi conveyed to Italian DG a deep concern about death of Satnam Singh and called for prompt action against those responsible. Now let's take a look at other stories making news. 3 terrorists were gunned down during an encounter with security forces in a forest area in Jammu and Kashmir's Doordarshan district on Wednesday. Intensified search and cordon operation by the police along with the Indian Army and Central Reserve Police Force followed the twin terrorist attacks in the hilly district on June 11 and 12. National Commission for Scheduled Castes Chairman Kishore Makwana met the families of whose tragedy victims in the Karunapuram area on Wednesday. The death toll in which has now increased to 63. The chairman criticized the Tamil Nadu government for not taking action against the manufacture and sale of illicit liquor in the state. In Kerala, schools and colleges will remain closed on Thursday in 6 districts in view of rain alert issued by the Indian Met Department. Meanwhile, all the professional exams which are scheduled for the day will not be cancelled. Some districts of Kerala have been receiving incessant rainfall for the last 2 days. Now, Reserve Bank of India has said that India is at the threshold of a major structural shift in its growth trajectory and is moving towards 8% GDP growth in a sustained manner. RBI also mentioned that India's growth will be multi-sectoral, driven by various structural reforms, with the goods and services tax being at the forefront. Moving on to other stories now, Bolivia just averted a military coup. Its President Luis Arce slammed the coup attempt against the government, asked people to mobilize in favor of democracy and called for international support as its armed forces pulled back from the President's palace in La Paz. Armored vehicles rammed into the doors of Bolivia's government palace, but President Luis Arce said the country stood firm against attacks on democracy and urged people to mobilize. Earlier in the day, military units led by recently stripped General Juan Jose Zuniga had gathered in the central plaza Murillo Square, which is home to the presidential palace and Congress. Later, Bolivian authorities arrested Zuniga. And tensions have been building in Bolivia ahead of general elections in 2025, with leftist ex-President Evo Morales planning to run against former ally Arce, creating a major rift in ruling Socialist Party and wider political uncertainty. Bolivian President Luis Arce appointed new military chiefs on Wednesday after armored vehicles. Troops gathered outside Bolivian presidential palace. Jose Wilson Sanchez Velasquez, the newly named Commander General of the Army, ordered troops in the streets to demobilize as his first command.
Now, in my capacity as Commander General of the Army and on behalf of the 3 force commanders, I order that all personnel who are mobilized in the streets must return to their units.
The former leader Evo Morales also accused the former top general of plotting a coup. Earlier, Arce had denounced the mobilization of some army units in La Paz led by General Juan Jose Zuniga and demanded the troops demobilize. Arce said the action stained the image of democracy at an international level and generated uncertainty.
The presence of all Bolivians on social networks who are demonstrating against this coup attempt, which only damages the image of democracy at the international level and generates unnecessary uncertainty in our country at a time when Bolivians need to work to move the country forward.
In response to the military mobilization in Bolivia, other Latin American leaders condemned the attempt coup and expressed strong support for Bolivian President Luis Arce. Other Latin American and European leaders also voiced on social media their condemnation and solidarity with Bolivia's legitimate government. President slammed the coup attempt and called for international support. And former Honduran President Juan Orlando Hernandez was sentenced by a U.S. judge to 45 years in prison for his conviction on drug and firearm offences. The sentence means Hernandez will likely spend the rest of his life behind the bars unless his expected appeal succeeds. A Manhattan jury found him guilty in March of accepting millions of dollars in bribes to protect U.S.-bound cocaine shipments belonging to traffickers. Prosecutors had sought a life sentence, while defense lawyers said a 40-year term, the mandatory minimum under federal law, was enough. Hernandez denied taking bribes and said he fought the cartels during his presidency. He has been jailed in Brooklyn's Metropolitan Detention Center since his April 2022 extradition. An Argentina court began the trial against 3 individuals accused of attempting to assassinate former President Cristina Fernandez de Kirchner was attacked in September 2022 by a Brazilian national resident and his ex-girlfriend outside her home in Buenos Aires. Kirchner was at the time vice president. The pair faced charges of up to 15 years for attempted premeditated homicide. Another man, Nicolas Carrizo, was also connected to the assassination attempt and is facing charges. The oral trial into the gun attack is likely to last up to a year, with over 200 witnesses expected to be called. The suspects remain in custody. Defense lawyers have argued that the pistol was not capable of firing, while Kirchner has criticized the investigation and the courts alleging an alleged conspiracy by her political opponents. Well, still to come on this edition of DD India Live. EU and Volodymyr Zelensky expected to sign Ukraine Security Pact. Indonesia's 10 Garisse pray for rain as climate change threatens crops. In Euro Cup 2024, Turkey reached last 16 with a 2-1 victory over Czech Republic. Welcome back. You're watching DD India Live. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. Some more stories. In the US, President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump will meet on a debate stage on Thursday for the first of 2 televised face-offs. The debate could prove critical in their tight 3-match race to win the White House in November. More than 4 months ahead of the November 5 vote, the debate will be the earliest presidential debate in modern US history. Biden's campaign is hoping to talk about abortion and Trump's about immigration, but debate moderators will decide the questions Topics may include how the candidates would handle challenges posed by persistently high grocery prices, migrants on the US-Mexico border, and the ongoing Israel-Hamas and Russia-Ukraine wars. You can watch the debate live at 1 GMT, which is 6:30 IST on Friday. And British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and Labour leader Keir Starmer clashed repeatedly in their last head-to-head debate of the election campaign due next Thursday. The debate was mainly focused over election betting, Partygate, taxation, benefits and immigration. Sunak repeatedly urged viewers not to surrender public policy to the Labour Party, while Starmer accused Sunak of being out of touch. Both launched highly personal attacks over their and the party's credibility too.
Last week in the Gambling Commission, we saw Partygate. Earlier in this Parliament, the Prime Minister himself was convicted and fined for breaking the rules which he brought in and imposed on everybody else. And of course, we've seen what happened with the COVID contracts and the huge amounts of money that were made. This takes leadership. What I did when one of my team was alleged to have been involved and investigated by the Gambling Commission, they were suspended within minutes.
An independent internal inquiry into what happened, have taken action and suspended the candidates involved, and I've been crystal clear that they should face the full consequences of the law. But Keir Starmer talks about leadership in politics. I also think leadership means being straight with people. It means having the courage of your convictions, not changing your mind on every single position that you've taken.
And the US Supreme Court appears poised to allow abortions to be performed in Idaho in cases of medical emergencies. A court spokesperson said in a statement that a document was briefly uploaded to the court's website and that the opinion in the case will be issued in due course. The justices heard arguments in the case in April. The document that was briefly posted indicated that the court's vote was 6-3. The top court has not officially released its ruling in the case. Meanwhile, a group of anti-abortion protesters engaged in angry exchanges in front of the court as the justices prepare to deliver rulings on the scope of abortion access following. President Joe Biden's administration, which sued Idaho over the abortion law, has urged the justices to uphold that ruling. And the European Union is expected to sign a security agreement with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky on Thursday, pledging to keep delivering weapons, military training and other aid to Kiev. The agreement will lay out EU's commitment to help Ukraine in areas of security and defense policy. The pact is expected to sign at a summit of EU leaders in Brussels. Countries including the United States, Britain, France and Germany have sealed security pacts with Kiev. The draft EU document says its commitments will remain in effect as Ukraine pursues its European path. Now, French President Emmanuel Macron welcomed Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban for a meeting at the Elysee Palace on Wednesday. France will turn over the rotating EU Council presidency to Hungary on July 1st and Budapest will be holding it until December 31st, 2024. Macron and Orban are also meeting ahead of a Brussels summit where EU leaders will discuss the strategic agenda, Ukraine, the Middle East and security. Now, Kenyan President William Ruto has declined to sign the controversial finance bill a day after protests rocked the country. More than a dozen people died and hundreds more injured after protesters took to the streets to oppose tax increases on essential items. DD India's Isabel Nakeria reports from Kampala.
Kenyan President William Ruto has conceded to demands of young people and repeal the finance bill that seeks to raise taxes on basic commodities like bread, cooking oil and fuel. The bill has now been returned to Parliament for reconsideration. Thousands came out to protest the tax increments, resulting in loss of lives and destruction of property. Kenya is sitting on a staggering $80 billion bill pile, and lawmakers were hoping to use these new taxes to pay that down. But after the public backlash, Mr. Ruto has now directed austerity measures to cut down public expenditures by reducing the purchase of public vehicles, travel and renovations. The measures will affect the office of the president and other government departments. The Kenyan leader says he will meet with the young people and other various stakeholders to discuss a way forward. Now, some of the issues that were raised during the protests were lack of jobs and high costs of living. Meanwhile, the situation in Kenya remains tense but calm, with heavy police and military presence on the streets. I'm Isabel Nakiria in Kampala reporting for DD India.
Haiti Prime Minister Gary Conille visited the base of the Kenyan police in Port-au-Prince on Wednesday. Conille doubled down on their joint commitment to regain control of the violence-ravaged country as a peacekeeping mission begins. 455 Kenyan troops are part of long-awaited peacekeeping mission in the Haitian capital to tackle gang violence. The Kenyan police are expected to be joined by officers from some 15 other nations, including other countries in Africa and Caribbean, as well as Canada, France, Germany, Britain and Spain. Altogether, the security forces will form a 2,500-strong peacekeeping mission funded primarily by the United States, which has pledged $360 million. And as a major landmark in its economic recovery, Sri Lanka has reached a final restructuring agreement for its external debt that it owes to its bilateral creditors. Sri Lankan President Ranil Wickremesinghe announced signed agreements with China and other creditor nations to restructure about $10 billion in bilateral debt. The agreement will be presented to Parliament on July 2nd, President Wickremesinghe said during a post-signing address to the nation. Wickremesinghe said bilateral loan payments to foreign countries will be postponed till 2028 and that the country will have until 2043 to repay them. The deals will also allow Sri Lanka to move forward with a $2.9 billion program with the International Monetary Fund aimed at ending its financial crisis. The homeless people in Oklahoma City are struggling to stay out of the fierce sun as swathes of U.S. suffers from extreme heat wave with shattering temperature records. As per the local officials, temperatures in Oklahoma City are set to soar to 37 degrees Celsius this week. City's homeless people are particularly at risk without adequate shelter and a ready supply of drinking water. People are seeking shade wherever possible to get some respite from the heat wave. Indonesia's Tenggara are praying for rain at volcano's edge in rituals of the Kasada as climate change threatens crops. The increasingly unpredictable weather has made seeking divine blessings even more vital for the community this time. Farmers in Mount Bromo rely on rain and rain-fed lakes for irrigation, but the dry weather has forced farmers to plant less lucrative plants. Due to scarce rain, some crops are being harvested one time compared to 3 times a year. And the Federal Emergency Management Agency Urban Search and Rescue K9 team has been deployed in and around the towns of Ruidoso in New Mexico after wildfires killed 2 people. Cadaver dogs are sniffing through tons of debris in an effort to potentially recover any remains left in the rubble. The wildfires have burnt over 1,400 homes and triggered the evacuation of around 8,000 residents from their homes. Earlier, heavy rains caused serious flooding in the area last week with multiple mudslides. Heavy rainfall triggered landslides and flash floods in Nepal on Wednesday. The officials said at least 11 people were killed due to landslides, with another 9 killed by lightning strikes over the past 2 days. Landslides swept away 3 houses overnight in Lamshung district, killing 4 people including 2 children. Another 3 died in landslides in Kaski in the west and Okaldhunga in East Nepal. Sports now. Will start with cricket. Ongoing first semi-final of T20 World Cup 2024, Afghanistan suffered a humiliating batting collapse in their clash against South Africa in Trinidad. A 3 for each from Tabrez Shamsi and Marco Jansen helped South Africa a dream start in their pursuit of a first major ICC final. Afghanistan had lost 5 wickets in the power play, which is a joint record in the history of the tournament. Apart from Shamsi and Janssen, Kagiso Rabada and Anrek Nokia also bagged 2 wickets each. Earlier, Afghanistan had won the toss and opted to bat. Meanwhile, unbeaten India will take on reigning champions England in the second semi-finals of T20 World Cup in Guyana today. India put the finishing touches to a perfect Super 8 stage with a 24-run win over Australia, while England booked their place in the final 4 with a 10-wicket win against co-host USA. India and England will face off in a repeat of last edition's semi-final, where the latter won by 10 wickets in Adelaide in 2022. Euro Cup now. Cenk Tosun scored a stoppage time winner as Turkey beat Czech Republic 2-1 in a fiery final group game to secure a last 16 tie against Austria. The Czech quarter-finalists at the last tournament needed victory to stand any chance of advancing, but the 20th minute dismissal of midfielder Antonin Barak for a harsh second yellow card hit them hard. In fact, there were a total of 18 cards shown in or after the game, a new record for a European Championship match. Meanwhile, Turkey finished second behind Portugal in Group F and will play Austria in the last 16 on July 2nd in Leipzig. Well, that's all for this edition of DD India Live, but do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. And we'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Abhishek from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India Live.